Hello.
Hi, Mark. How are you tonight?
Good.
Super. Are you up first?
Yes.
Super. We can get started when you're ready.
All right. All right. So, I don't even know really where to start, but I guess kind of recapping some of the other stuff that I've done. I was kind of trying to put stuff together maybe for Monday or kind of really organize my thoughts because I feel like I've kind of been all over the place.
Actually, I enjoy your modesty, and I love the soft sell that you sort of create for yourself. But Mark, you're actually a pretty clear thinker, and I think that while you may have kind of the sort of more, in fact, Southern way of like talking in terms of like making it slow and making it kind of engaging from the perspective of cadence. Your thoughts are actually very intelligent. They have a lot of like pulp to them. They have a lot of humidity to them. So if I say that to you and that gives you a little bit more sort of self-assurance, that's maybe the aim for it. But I'll also say this: I enjoy listening to you talk about your work. So I don't mind the confusion, but you can't hide behind that forever.
Right. No, and that's kind of where I feel like I'm like a slow starter. But
Yeah, me too. Quite honestly, I'm the same way. Yeah, because I've seen your work. Right. That's one of the things that I valued about, inviting you all to talk about your work. And you had a lovely project, last year. So that kind of coherence, that kind of organization, is what I expect from you now.
All right.
So that's kind of like a kick in the pants. well, I'm holding your elbow, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, Monday's the kick in the pants.
Monday will be good because you're going to get the feedback from, hopefully I've invited two people, a landscape architect who really thinks like an architect and thinks about sites in terms of how architecture displaces the space on the ground plane.
Right.
And then an architect who's actually really, really gifted. He is actually the chair of the Historic District Commission in the city of Detroit. So he knows historical properties and he knows missing middle because he's sat in on our reviews before. So he's really excited to be back.
Cool.
Really cool.
Okay. I guess, yeah. So this is, I found this kind of interesting. It's in Ann Arbor, if you don't recognize it, but it was like, I was just looking around at other things and I happened to see this, and it's kind of funny to have this giant apartment building next to this like traditional house. Just, I don't know, seems like a stark comparison.
Yeah, and the reason that happens is because we move towards density in high density in some neighborhoods in some cities, and our Ann Arbor has gone that way. And soon enough, those houses will either be relocated or raised,
right,
to make way for more of what you see on the left.
Yep.
Who developed this building on the left? Do you know?
Forget who it is. I think it's the Varsity Apartments, though.
Is this Ron Hughes? Hughes Development?
I didn't look into it.
Did you guys do it?
We did not. No. I don't know. So yeah, from last week, I guess just some of the things that I looked at were the paper mill condominiums in Washington, D.C.
Okay. Yep.
Village Drive condominiums in Dearborn, the Hutongs and Suhuyans, just in China.
Right. Good stuff there.
it kind of got me thinking, both with Dearborn and with these, about, I guess, the use, who's actually going to use these things. And I started to steer towards, in my mind, families in a sense.
Right.
So that's kind of what was in my mind as I was doing this last week. But just to give you some location, it's in Southfield, located between the 696 and I guess the Lodge Freeway, that corner.
Uh-huh.
Just some aerial shots. And ultimately,
Go back one, please.
Yep.
I think that you ought to draw a boundary in bright magenta or something like that, or some bright, vibrant color, like a dashed line.
Right.
That show, like that plate. Keep that plate. Click site neighborhood. Click specific parcel or specific site.
Right.
And then try to bring the next plate, if you advance to it right now, bring that in as a reference.
Okay.
And draw a boundary around the area that you're gonna bite off for this studio.
So do you think, because that's one of the things I was thinking, I kind of come back to it. Like, I sort of say, well, this is like my area, but in my process, I didn't really know where I was going to go. I don't know. So at that point, like, yeah, I kind of knew I wanted to be in this area, but I started to do more research on commuters, because the city is basically a large commuter city. Over about 100,000 people come into the city, and the population's only about 75,000. Oakland County in general has more people who come into it than even Detroit or Ann Arbor, some of the surrounding communities. I looked at commuting, and just the fact that it's gotten more and more, I guess I shouldn't say more and more, but it's gotten more use just throughout the years since, I don't know, since 1960s, 80s. Looked at, along with that, the number of vehicles that typical households have. Most have 2 or more, but you've got a strong percentage that even like for inside the actual metro area don't have any cars at all. So you've got like that 9%. Basically, this is that 9%, the people that don't even have a vehicle available, and kind of the breakdown of how old they might be. So you've got like this large percentage of 25 to 29-year-olds, kind of young professionals. Maybe they're living in the cities. That stands out. I looked at basically moving, why people move to certain areas or from certain areas, with basically just wanting new or better homes, apartments kind of being the top answers, or family, just family related reasons. And we talked about that as well, being that you kind of you grow up, maybe you want to get away from your parents, but we talked about kind of going back to where you came from, going back to your family, being close to them. And that's what I see, or kind of noticed and thought about as I continued to research this site. Looked at college completion, and in thinking of that, how much college debt
What's going on up in northwest Wyoming?
Yeah. I
What
didn't
city
look
is
at
that?
that too much, but
Wow, it looks like
yeah,
everyone's graduating up there.
exactly. What is that? Is that like their state cap? Now I'm curious.
No.
Just has a large.
I mean, that must be, these are all counties. So it's
Yeah.
that color it's that size because of its, the county boundary. And there may be like pockets in it that are.
Kind of like the Wyoming. Yellowstone. Maybe there's just not a lot of people there. Or it's like
Or maybe they're all employees and they have to have
yeah, there you go.
diplomas.
It's probably what
Grand
it is.
Teton,
Yeah.
Du Bois.
Jackson,
That's very
Canyon Village.
unusual. Okay. But Detroit has its reason to be proud.
Yep. So we've got
as does Oakland County.
yeah, quite a lot between I guess Washtenaw and Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
But that in my mind equates to college student loan debt. And basically just looking at student loan debt in Michigan, it's about 30,000 as of like 2015 on average. Mm-hmm. And about 65% of students have that student loan debt. So looking at different levels of college, master's degree pretty high as well, between like 10 to 20%, and even doctoral degrees coming in around 3 to 5%. Just percentage enrolled in school, age-wise, there's actually a large percentage of the population 35 and older that's still in school in Oakland County. And looking at it a little bit more in depth, just the percentage that actually has a bachelor degree, you can see that it's kind of spread out. I think Farmington is around here. Southfield makes its way in to this location. So we're in like the light blue mostly.
Right.
So I guess the things that I'm thinking are student loan debt, the population of Southfield being an older aging population, about 40% is over the age of 50. There's not so many young people.
Right.
And there's just a large influx of people during working hours. There's only about 35,000 households available, I guess, total, and about 31,000 that are used. And then thinking of the populations over 50, I started to think about just like the retirement savings, and there's really only there's about 30% of Americans that just don't have any retirement savings. They'll rely solely on, I guess, Medicaid and Social Security. And even beyond that,
that'll be a wake-up call.
Yeah, exactly. Just beyond that, the 70% that do have savings basically don't have. They have between, it's like about $150,000, $140,000 on average, or yeah, $140,000, which is not a lot to live on for the next 30 years. So a lot of the older generation might be working later.
Of course,
because they just don't have the means to retire at the age that they are supposed to. So in my mind, I'm thinking of working towards a multi-generational community. And in thinking about that, I'm thinking that just cities can't survive on one demographic alone. I thought, okay, well, I could make this for, the new couples or the early emerging professionals, but in a sense, this is for them as well,
Sure.
because those people, their parents are getting older. We've got rising healthcare costs, rising childcare costs, and with low retirement savings, I think having this return to, I guess, multi-generational housing can provide relief for those people who don't have the means to maybe send their parents to a nursing home or provide some kind of a nurse to come and take care of them. And it provides the grandparents can provide the childcare for the daughters and sons of the newly working parents, I guess. So in that sense, I think it's more inclusive for everybody. It benefits everybody. I understand that this isn't something that everybody wants, but at the same time, it's not something that we really have a lot of. In Southfield, there are a lot of, I don't know if I should say a lot, but there are several like 55 and older apartments or kind of community areas that are, I guess they're fine, but at the same time, it's very segregated. It's just kind of, that's where they are. I could also see this as not being so, and in my mind, I don't know what I'm designing yet, and I don't know if I have to. And that's kind of the struggle, is as I'm thinking of this, I'm like, well, how am I going to design it? And I start just thinking about it and researching more about it. And I think that it's one of those things where, if done a certain way, could potentially be used in different ways than just like a multi-generational house. Maybe it's for several friends that go to school, because there are, I don't know, seven different schools in this area. They're not like big ones. They're just kind of like the buildings for like commuting people. They have their satellite campuses essentially. But there are about 7 around the area. So to think of that as an opportunity to fill some of this as well could be a potential.
Gotcha.
But yeah, just between I guess the older generation living longer, the economy the way it was, the younger people are living with their parents longer, and even people who, I don't know, had jobs but lost them, come to live back with their parents, called boomerang children. This can all, I guess, be inclusive in this community. So I'm thinking, and I don't know if this is too big of a bite to chew off, but I'm thinking like I want to develop a block similar to kind of what I've researched between the different like condos and the hutongs and stuff like that. So I'd like to create this kind of community. And And even when I look at this is what distracts me a lot. I keep on imagining this place more fully built out, and I want to kind of rearrange it, um, reroute the roads, or add roads where maybe it would
Right.
form blocks and stuff like
Right.
that. I don't know if that's
Because the layout's distracting, and
exactly,
that's actually why I think this layout is was interesting and compelling when it was done. But the whole sensibility, the current best practices about urban planning strategies in neighborhoods like this has changed, and that's why this will never go.
right.
Well, I don't mean to derail the conversation,
Sure.
but now I'm thinking of, I'm going to say Dearborn again, but not the neighborhood we visited, and
Right.
maybe not Dearborn at all,
Uh-huh.
but maybe Southfield. And I'm saying this because of your remark about, maybe I'm not doing a design at all, which on point is interesting to me, because maybe you're right. Maybe it's actually, maybe you actually like craft a prism through which the content of this this polyfamily, right, is projected through, and the colors of that content, right, are configured on that block that you have in Constance's plan. And then you get a different prism, right, and you shine that content of the polyfamily into a current neighborhood somewhere in Southfield, and start to look at, like, what would you have to do to those single family houses, the driveways, the garages, in I guess in a way to recast those products of, like, obvious suburbanism and obvious suburbia, and make them something that could accommodate the polyfamily, in such a way that, two sisters or a brother and sister could live next door to each other. The garages could be granny flats, right? The driveways could be like play areas. The backyard could be vegetable gardens. And what kind of enclave could 2 or 3 existing single family homes do to a neighborhood, to a block, that allow for the sort of arrival of the polyfamily, right? So, I mean, that could be very interesting, and it would cause you to learn about, the residential typology of Southfield. It would cause you to learn about the zoning ordinance and what they allow and what would have to change in the ordinance to allow 2 principal structures on, one residential lot. What would you have to do to grow a 1-bedroom or 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, right? And it could produce some very interesting improvements to a typology that has grown pretty tired, because it, while pervasive, never got innovated. It never got improved. In fact, it was an obsolete thing. When you got a bigger family, you moved out and you moved north on the northwestern corridor to the next community that had the same 3 bedrooms, but then it had 3 baths. It had 3-car garage, right? It had, it had times 3, and then it went out to Commerce, right? That whole sort of sensibility changed. And so you could look at this as like 2 different projects. One where you study the suburban tract house and tap it for all that it could be, and show us iterations of the suburban tract house with the 2-car garage and how you could, pardon my French, pimp those rides, right?
Mhm.
How you could approach that product. And the second project could be to snap off a piece of Constance's urban plan and say, okay, these two buildings are in play, right? They're there. This is what they have in them. You just create the myth, right? And this is the parking field. These are the roads. And I'm going to approach this as an urban design proposal and introduce a somewhat new typology to the old urban vision that Constance had, and introduce like missing middle housing into that. And what would that look like, or what could that look like? Could it be more bar buildings that have apartments above offices with parking and retail on the ground floor? And you could illustrate or chase that, right? You could design that. Could it be like what we did or what Nico did in the missing middle competition? Sure, it could, right? So you could deploy that there. You could look at this concern a couple of different ways to produce a couple of different projects, and the variable would be the site and not the content that's being projected through the prism, not the family, not the glass prism itself. So I don't know if you've thought about that, but to me, that's another possibility.
Yeah. I guess what I've thought about is having this, really mainly the scale is what I've thought about. Like I've said, well, is this going to be just like, these houses that kind of exist as their own separate entities, or is it in a sense like a dense configuration? I find myself leaning more towards a dense configuration, but at the same time, I don't know if it fits the typology of like multi-generational housing or communities. And it's not so much that I really wanted to create the house itself as much as I did, but at the same time, it's more about the bigger picture of like all of them interacting together.
So why don't you like search missing middle housing and just show me what the 4 or 5 typologies there are. I don't have them all memorized, for instance.
Yeah. And that was the other thing, because
there's different typologies that you could deploy.
And that was the one thing that I've been, for the past 4 weeks, I've been in the back of my mind thinking that we were going to have to create like our own typology that isn't one of those things.
No, I think you could, and maybe you could, I would be obviously open to that. But like in that image right there, what if the neighborhood had like 2 of those or 3 of those, right? The live work, the multiplex, the townhouse, the bungalow court, the courtyard apartment, the triplex, the fourplex, and then the duplex. I don't know that the bungalow court works in some of these neighborhoods, but there are examples of the bungalow court in Birmingham, for example. Carl Lukenbach did that 25-year AIA award-winning product. He did 2 of them, and they're some of the most coveted addresses in town. Not because they look like the work of Irving Gill out in Los Angeles, but like in the apartment that Steve Carell lived in, right? In 40 or whatever that movie's called.
Yeah.
Right? That's like an Irving Gill complex,
Mm-hmm.
or the complex that, the complex he lived in. So, it's not that kind of Southern California weather creates the sort of possibility for the Courtyard apartment to work, but we have them here.
Right.
But I think, you could take one or two of those types, and for the urban plan that you're looking at, I think the live work, the multiplex, the townhouse, and the bungalow court could work extremely easily. Those are taller and denser volumes.
Right.
They take up more space, and they create, I think, the competition, right, to the mid-rise product that you see beyond the missing middle sort of dimension line that you have in that drawing.
Yeah.
I think in the Southfield neighborhood that I was talking about, I think the idea of like what if a family bought 3 like foreclosed houses for $100,000, scraped them or reused them and created a much denser enclave like Courtyard Apartments or a bungalow court. That could be very interesting. That could be provocative.
Like added essentially to the properties.
Absolutely. Make the case that this is actually the way. If you want more younger people to move into Southfield, if you want more taxes, right, more tax revenue,
right,
and you want to continue to encourage multi-generations, right, and all the things that you have discovered in Southfield that are deficient and potentially problematic for a more sustainable future, then they're going to have to revisit the whole way that they discourage this kind of housing scenario, and you show them what they should encourage. That's the goal of this studio. That's what's so interesting about this content, this program, because you guys could be single-handedly subverting, right, the way ordinances sort of keep things nice and tidy, nice and segregated, and nice and bland. So I'm not challenging you to create something new to throw into that missing middle housing dimension string there, although you could, right? I'm saying don't ignore those, and maybe put a couple of those in your sketchbook and start noodling with them as ways of visiting the site.
Okay.
So if you didn't want to do a project per se, maybe you do, a couple of little like urban studio or urban project scenarios, or you say, now that you know that, well, sure, you can use live work, multiplex, and townhouse, and you don't have to invent anything. Then you can go to Constance's site plan and say, I'm just going to do these types in this block, in this neighborhood, as part of the much larger urban plan that the city has ratified, let's say. And that's my project, and that's what I'm going to do for the rest of the semester. I would be totally comfortable with that.
Okay.
Does that get you off the dime?
Yeah. I mean, I want to do it. I want to do it all kind of like I want to do the block, but at the same time, I want to design everything as well.
Yeah. So now scroll down and look at. Let's just look at this page while we have a few more minutes.
Yeah.
These pictures right here, right, and right. So there's the bungalow court. That's Irving Gill right there. The duplex side by side. That's very, very popular.
Right.
And then there's the stacked, right? There you go. There's the, like, I guess I do have these memorized.
Yeah.
I would live in one of those all day long, right? The fourplex is a great little product because you get 4 nice apartments per floor. And so you've got low rise construction, no elevator, 2 simple stairs down and out from the common corridor, one in the front, which is your coat and tie facade, and one on the side or one on the rear. And then you've got the ability to maybe do a roof garden or a single apartment up on top, right? Which would be an invention or an innovation of the type. right? Which is what you were kind of like either hoping for or concerned about.
Right.
And then you've got the ability to do balconies to create more outdoor space. The ground floor apartments, while they don't like imply it in this image, could be part courtyard, right? Private courtyard, community courtyard, another sort of subversion of that type or innovation toward that type. So yeah, it doesn't, let's start with what we know,
Right.
right? Like the one of the types, and then spitball on it, kind of freestyle on it, and try to make it even better. Because this is stuff that we've been talking about in missing middle housing. I mean, although I didn't really know what it was 24 months ago, and I'm sure you didn't know what it was 2 months ago, although you probably did. But like, you know, it's already been done, and there's websites on it, and you know, people are already designing this way. So you have the opportunity to sort of show them how to do it even better.
Okay.
And
like you can,
I'm totally comfortable with that.
I like that. Just I guess knowing that a little bit more and
Yeah.
mix and matching stuff, just trying different different combinations.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And what I'd like you to do when you start to like travel, and whether it's like through Google Earth, or whether it's you know, authentic travel, like real travel, is start to look in these neighborhoods and see what they're doing. What is it about the neighborhood, the block that you're on, that you're actually feeling good about? And it's likely because you're seeing this kind of stuff. It's not like someone had this grand idea and said, oh, let's invent 5 types, and we'll call this one fourplex, this one duplex, and we're on this mission, right, to spread the word like Johnny Appleseed. No, these existed in American vernacular. Right. Yeah. And they were like responses to unique or specific like need, program, budget, skill set. Like builder says, I can do those all day long, right? So they're actually they're gathered and branded in this missing middle frame because of their commitment to multifamily and density, their commitment to like privileging open space and the spaces around the buildings for compaction and smallness, for example, and thinking of housing as a cooperative thing, insofar as people had to have to live compatibly and collaboratively and cooperatively together, which emboldens a community, as opposed to the neighborhood of single family homes, right? Where
that's where
the sense of community is a more strained proposition. It's harder, right, to do that.
Yeah, that's kind of where my mind was at, just with the multi-generation community. It's not so subdivided and I don't know, stale, I guess. It's kind of, people are out during different times, they have different schedules. I don't know, you just have more people and they're all kind of doing their part in the community, rather than like, okay, well, I've got my land and you've got your land. Right.
I don't travel very much, perhaps you do, but like when we travel with friends or when we travel with families, we kind of like, we would rent this building, right? Because we'd want to be together. We'd want to cook together. We'd want to recreate outside together. We'd want to walk together to the pool, right? Or the beach. And we'd all want to come back at 4 o'clock for a cocktail and then a glass of wine, you know, at sunset. You know what I mean? Or the same thing with like up north, skiing or sledding or snowmobiling. We'd want to be together as friends or family to celebrate either like the sort of privilege of being able to vacation, or just to sort of be with each other. And so the single family home kind of aspires to that, but it fails because of its lack of proximity, I guess. And so it might be interesting to sort of try to understand why these kinds of buildings and why these kinds of resorts, why these kinds of cities that are really like known for being great cities, why do they work? They work because they have these things in them already.
Right.
And because these things are like woven into the grid. They're woven into the sort of fabric of the city. When I think of my time living in Cincinnati, visiting Chicago, visiting Baltimore, visiting New York, visiting Boston, visiting Savannah, visiting, you know what I mean?
I thought you said you didn't travel.
Yeah, but like I'm old, so I have. But like, right? I mean, these are the things that people point to and go, "Oh man, that's really beautiful."
Right.
It's beautiful because it's like beautiful in the way that it creates that community.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help?
Yeah, yeah, very much.
I see Ellen Dunham Jones at the bottom of that paragraph there.
Yep.
You know, her book was co-written by Jun Sub Kim. Did you know that?
Yeah. I think you mentioned that before.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, as you begin to like get into this, maybe since you've had this sort of epiphany tonight, I think you need to maybe study think this through, study those types, and maybe dabble in, what would duplexes or quads look like on this site, and show us an iteration of it. What would mid-rise look like on this site, and illustrate an iteration of that. You don't have to have it like all designed for Monday night, but like maybe show us what these types, apply your research, apply the type to the site, and then we'll look at them comparatively, and when we could say, wow, there's like, what do you think, Mark? But we see that there's maybe the possibility of that, and maybe there's a mix and match. Maybe it's not just this and then this and then this in the iterations. Maybe it's that, but then there's like another layer where you blend one or two to create a more rich scenario, because families come in all sizes, right?
Yeah.
Not just the picture of the family that you had up. Because a family can be like a mother-in-law and or a father-in-law, right? Everyone loves Raymond. That could be the family, right? So they come in different sizes and shapes.
Yeah.
But I think the idea of applying the missing middle typologies is really useful to you as a starting point.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Not really. I guess just as far as, because I did have a few ideas about users in mind, or users.
I think you could. I think that family could be a good one. You could just diagram them.
Oh, yeah, that's what I would like.
Right.
Just, do you think it's worth it to consider like different possibilities of what that family is?
Yeah, I think you could do like 4 families or 5 families, 3 families, and and then explain how they would like occupy these rooms. Maybe they help create that program. Don't forget to give me your project statement.
Okay. Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay. Good luck. I'll talk to you on Monday.
All right. Thank you.
Or this weekend if you need me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.
Hi, Adam. Are you next?
Yes, I am.
Tim is? Okay.
No, I said I am.
Oh, I'm sorry. You broke out when you said it, and I heard the A. I heard I am, and not.
I'm at 8 o'clock.
Okay, super. Okay, Adam, you have the floor.
So I'm considering looking more at a different location, probably a little more towards
Oh, you just froze.
I guess where the action is, or more in downtown.
Right.
with reading about different missing middle housing types, it's a lot more about being close to things, being more a part of a walkable urban environment. So I was looking at lots area, and so there is one open site. It's nearby the Michigan Historical Center and Library.
Yep, I know
and
that.
the Capitol itself. There's a lot right down here between Washington Street. So thinking of using that as a potential site. It's just a few blocks down the road from Washington Square, which is where all the different restaurants are to eat at. Mm-hmm. Just to the north of that, up the road there, there's a lot of different churches for people, and then a little bit past that, you have Lansing Community College, and then Riverfront Park, which holds streets for people. So that's the reason I wanted to look more at that site.
So Adam, could you zoom in on the block you're thinking of? I'm having trouble. I think I'm looking at a map here and not anything that's drawn or with a boundary. So Kalamazoo to Allegan?
Right now it's shut. Yeah, Kalamazoo to Washington on the north, Butler on the right.
So that block.
Martin Luther King on the left.
Right. And there's nothing on that block?
It looks like there's a house in one corner. I don't know if it's occupied. But otherwise, there's nothing else on there.
What about the north block?
The north block, there's housing along the east and north side. But then the whole southwest corner of that. Oh shoot, I lost my screen.
Yeah. I'm kind of liking that lot or that parcel. I'll explain why. But I'm wondering if you can guess why.
Okay. I guess in some ways it might help more with creating a sense of community and joining in more with the already existing urban fabric.
Mm-hmm. Building on kind of strength and history. I also like maybe kind of hope that you would see the relationship of that new architecture and the old architecture with a cultural institution and not with a parking lot as an advantage, right?
Oh yeah, it would be closer, closer to stuff. Yeah.
So I think if you thought of Missing Middle as maybe you think of it on that site as kind of like the sort of continue. I don't know if you can see me, but the continuation of that street wall with new housing along Washtenaw, along what is that service, that boulevard?
There's Butler Boulevard.
Yeah, but what's the other one?
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King. Is that a busy road?
It's really only busy.
It has houses on the other side.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the idea of creating, another block there, or another like street wall there could be an interesting way to create like a complete block. But also, I mean, maybe it's not just more single family houses, but maybe it's townhomes on King, duplexes on Washtenaw, and then maybe like an apartment building on the corner near the parking lot. And in other words, just like we were talking about with Mark, deploying 2 or maybe even 3 missing middle types to create a new grid or new layout for that existing block. And maybe that block actually has to have another street running through it or a drive aisle coming in. Looks like there's a long driveway that got erased, partially erased anyways. That could be, that could service a parking lot. But like thinking of that block as pretty strong, although it's kind of like eroded at that southwest corner. And your proposition would be to sort of mend that. But it's a hard block. I'm just saying it's not an easy block to improve because the scale of everything there is just so immense compared to everything west of MLK.
Right.
Go over to Lansing Community College. Oh, actually, stay here where you are for a minute. On the other hand, this block, deployed the way we talked, could actually deploy the other block as a test ground or as an innovation center, right? And an exhibition space, like an outdoor exhibition space for these, innovative yurts that you're, and I'm teasing you when I say it that way, but right, the innovative, the sort of innovative housing products that you're thinking that these team members, these residents would be actually making. So, thinking of both blocks together as like talking to one another and supporting each other for a much larger development vision, that could be helpful. And then the parking lot for the, what is that William Kessler building again? Is that the one with the circle in the front?
Oh, the historical museum.
Yeah, so I mean, it could all dovetail into that, and the parking lot on the weekend could serve both institutions. That kind of thinking.
Okay.
I mean, I'll be honest. I'd love to see you work in Old Town. I think that's what you call it here.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, that historical neighborhood or near Lansing Community College, where you've got like density and you got things to rub up against, right? Things to react to. That actually makes your work easier as an architect. Working on open spaces, like that gives me the death shudder, right? Like, what the heck am I going to do there? Because I don't have anything to reflect against, respond to, depart from, relate to, or impose over, because there's nothing around me. I'm kind of just screaming out there in the middle of the field, right? So that's why I kind of like to suggest that you look harder at the north lot for development in terms of residential product, and the south lot, as you had thought for your parcel, as maybe something more collaborative to the overall agenda.
Okay. So I guess getting more into how I was thinking, trying to brainstorm some ways of relating the different buildings to each other and creating density with them.
Yeah.
See, I'll bring up that.
Did you draw some stuff for the south lot?
I haven't really yeah, I did draw some stuff, but I didn't really lay it out and think too much about it. Yeah,
we can look at it. That's okay. Oh, cool.
So I started to create this kind of diagram. I guess for now I'm calling social network housing structure.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have these central octagonal common space units that people would own. And then from there, they'd begin to attach the different auxiliary units shown in gray onto this based on what their own personal needs are. And since these would become detachable, then if their situations change, let's say at one point, grandparents moved in to add on a new unit onto that. If a child moves off to college, they could potentially take that unit with them and hook on to something in that that city wherever they're moving to. they could begin to connect their different units, creating their own sort of shared amenities between the two houses.
Cool.
And let's say when one child moves away, then maybe one, rather than having an extra bedroom that you don't use, you're not stuck with that. You can then sell it to another family who just had a newborn baby.
So one question I guess I have immediately, just so I get oriented, give me the sense of the size of the gray snap-on, snap-off elements.
Those are about 10 foot by 12 foot.
Okay, so they're
Just,
basically
small.
like a room,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Okay, so these are pretty modest, but yeah, I got you.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't started to fill them in and think about exactly how big they would need to be.
But they do, this drawing is good because it shows convertibility, transformability, transportability, as well as sort of hierarchy, which I think is cool.
And then I started to think about how, let's see, how we can start to think about maintain, if you want to start working vertically with that, it might begin to become a challenge to detach those different units if you were a second story up from there. So you need some kind of secondary structure.
Yeah.
So I was, I don't think yeah, you can still see the screen. If I can find where I was though. So I was looking at Corbusier's, here, just gotta adjust my screen 1 second. Looking at Corbusier's dominoes, or the domino house.
The Domino's house, yeah.
And
creating the free plan.
Like a carriage house and Unité de Habitant with the common roofscape and different shared amenities between all the sites.
Right.
So then if each layer becomes a you sort of create a sort of a scaffolding with that, so that at different levels you can begin to start plugging into the common utilities shared between all of them. And then that scaffolding, the sort of, what do you call it, metal, not metal mesh, but metal decking that you'd see on like bridges and stuff. That can allow that to be transparent, and then you can still get light coming through that, and different airflow still being maintained rather than just like a concrete slab, a parking deck. And then so.
But it does have the DNA
elevators
of a parking deck, which is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So that way you can, people can, I guess, park their units within this overall structure. And let's say you wanted to detach a unit, you could disassemble that and transport it, and then transport it down the freight elevator and then reassemble it down below.
Very interesting.
Then I did think a little bit about how it'd be on that site, using that southern fully open site. I didn't want to completely block off any kind of walking from the neighborhoods to the west to this historical museum. So I thought that there could be a grand ramp coming up onto this second level with nicely landscaped, and then a bridge coming down across the other side, and then connecting it over towards the museum to the northeast of there. And then since this metal metal deck would have openings, water could start to drain through, and then drain through into the landscape area below, and then off the sides of the building into a sort of detention pond to help store water on site and let that help take care of the runoff from that.
So is this is this one unit deep with public space on the back and the front of each unit? Can we look at like the plan of this thing? Yeah, it looks like it. Maybe take the roof off. Yeah. Oh, so maybe not.
Or no, it's 2 units deep, but I could adjust that to, I guess, whatever it would need to be.
I'm just trying to understand that. And then so like I'm looking at this thing and I think the genetics of the model are causing me to react to it urbanistically. So hear me out. Because first of all, I'm kind of intrigued with this thing. It's quirky and it's innovative. I've never seen anything like this, and yet, given the kind of nod to the habitation units that you've seen by Corbusier, by Corbu, and it's all really, really interesting. So I don't want to quash that idea, but like the Unité, right? The habitation units were bad urbanistically. So that's what you got to brace yourself for. So the first thing I'd say is that by putting this thing at an angle on the site, and in the middle of the block, it doesn't really allow for things to be built up next to it, and it doesn't really help define the street more. You shouldn't be surprised about that, right? I mean, that's kind of like baseline urbanism, hold to the street wall, and make things normal in that sense. And if it's on the corner, take advantage of the corner. If it's in the middle of the block, then it's maybe a little bit more modest, right? Those are the rules of the game. Also, I think that the thing could be much longer and could have its own configuration, like it could be L-shaped or T-shaped, right? And therefore be much larger than what you've shown it. So don't know if you've thought about it urbanistically or programmatically to that extent, but like that's probably coming next. And then it could fill up the whole block, or it could be a giant donut, right? And fill up the block. And then the courtyard space in the middle could be a pond that everyone who lives there would enjoy. So if you thought about this thing as a digit, or like the bones in your spine, right? And you somehow took the model of that spine and just kinked it and kinked it and kinked it and closed it onto that site, you would have that spine wrapping around all 4 streets, creating a courtyard. Or maybe it's C-shaped, where the 2 legs run parallel to Martin Luther King, and then the other street, I can't remember what that was right now, but it's open along, what is that, Kalamazoo?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's like another possible iteration. So before you get too detailed in the architecture of this arc, right? Because that's what it is, sort of. Maybe kind of just go back and think about density and urbanism as an opportunity to help unite this new thing into the neighborhood as responsibly as you can, based on your own experience with urban design strategies and based on what we're talking about tonight. Now, as far as the thing goes, like the people living on the 2nd floor and the people living on the ground floor, that's got to be different kinds of experiences. What is that like? can I connect the second floor to the ground floor by means other than the egress stairs and elevators?
Right.
Okay, isn't that second floor going to have some thickness to it? Because it's always going to have like sewer and waste lines coming through it to go out. Not meaning to get too deep into the weeds, but
Right.
you know, like that's kind of, so there's maybe some sort of infrastructure that you have to think about. And then the first floor is raised up off of the ground by like 5 feet. So want to make sure what that's all about, and can it be at grade itself, for example? Thinking about the thing just in basic terms, that's something I'm reacting to.
The reason why first floor was raised up was that maybe that first floor could start to either become, maybe there'd be some sort of live work opportunities going on here, or maybe you'd be able to provide some parking there. So this whole thing is sort of
could be retail. Yeah. So it's kind of a quirky thing in terms of maybe the way it looks, but it's also kind of familiar in terms of the way you're breathing life into it. And I'm wondering if it makes sense for you to look at the piece by Corbu in like Marseille, the Unité d'Habitation.
Yeah.
Maybe like look at the section of it, look at like a typical plan, and look at the ground floor plan, look at the roof plan, because those elements are what makes that building important. Also, kind of your idea of like, Billy's moving out, right? And so he's gonna like pull the mini room in on a trailer to Kalamazoo College, right? And he's gonna plug it in there, for example. That's cool. When you look at some of the design drawings, Adam, of the Unité, you're going to see like Corbu talk about the Unité as a wine rack, right? Where each apartment is kind of like a wine bottle, right? A vessel for living in. So, it's really interesting how maybe inadvertently or unselfconsciously your ideas really do align with the Unité. I think you kind of owe it to yourself now hearing this to look at that more carefully. Look at the design drawings.
Okay.
I think you'll appreciate it more. And then people are going to start to like really get into this. So where's the architecture? Is the architecture in the thing is it in the wine bottle? And can I buy a red or a white wine? Can I buy champagne or a port? Do I have to buy one of your things? And if not, then really, I think, isn't the architecture the green columns and the stair towers and the base and the deck and the skin, if there isn't, right? So people are going to say, what are you owning here? And I said, I think that's going to be kind of important for you to pin that down. Have you thought about that?
I've just been going at it from, I guess, both angles from this point, looking at them both as the architecture.
Yeah. I'm not saying don't do this. I want to make that abundantly clear. I'm not saying that the quirkiness is going to derail a meaningful conversation with you. Quite the contrary. I think it's going to raise some very interesting conversations. And what I'm telling you is that this ain't the first time we've seen architects, promulgate these ideas. We heard this 50 years ago, right? By Corbusier, for example, among others. So it's it's like you kind of discovered, the role of Rolling Stones, an early Rolling Stones record, and you heard them playing a really cool blues song, and then I'm here to tell you that, oh well, you know that Mick Jagger got all those songs from like Mississippi John Hurt or Son House, or Muddy Waters, right? Who was doing this in Mississippi in the 1940s. And then you're going to go, whoa, I had no idea. So I'm saying, yeah, you need to go back and look at like the original recordings. That to me is kind of cool. That's actually very cool. But that also means that you need to know that stuff, and so maybe it's imperative that you get really, really deep into an understanding of the Unité. He did several of them. The one in Marseille, that's the south of France, is perhaps the most sort of significant one. He did one in Algiers, which I've seen in Algeria, and I've actually not seen the Unité there. And he did another one in Paris, but they're socialist housing. You have to know that, government housing, but they're very interesting. And then I think, so going back to where's the architecture, can you maybe close this for a second and open up your browser and type in, have you been to Paris?
I've been to the airport, but no.
Okay, that's a great airport, by the way.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Save that, and then quit.
And type in Pompidou Center. This is by Renzo Piano.
I think I got it.
And maybe we can screen share that. You know this building?
Recognize the name.
Yeah, go ahead and click that article. So this is a collaboration in like 1969 by Renzo Piano and Sir Norman or Sir Richard Rogers. This is a museum.
Okay.
And maybe, yeah. So let's scroll through these. That's the Maison Domino plan, right? That open floor. And then the infrastructure is actually on the exterior. And the aesthetic is obviously playful, mechanical, but celebrated, right?
Right.
The roof, right? And so you see it's this structural steel kind of vessel that allows for the sort of transformation of interior spaces into multiple sort of exhibit scenarios. Keep going, keep going. Keep going. Yeah, I want to get to a shot that shows that's the stairway. I took my students here. That's the site section. Details. Right. Keep going. I want to show you the plaza. Elevation. Okay. So the plaza is kind of an important thing because the plaza is your lake. And the plaza is where life happens out there.
Right.
And doesn't it let you stick on that picture?
No,
maybe,
it just keeps.
Yeah, so maybe go back to the article, which is at the top, right? No, go to the top right. Go to AD Clap, click on that. And then when you get to the article, scroll down and click on that last picture because I want you to see the plaza. Scroll all the way down. Usually they have those pictures there, yeah. Or just type in Pompidou Center Plaza into a Google search. Because the plaza has a bathtub type configuration. It could hold water, for example. Your internet must be slow. So let's look at the 1, 2, 3. So if you can scroll up. It's one of the most incredible urban spaces. You still there? Adam, are you still there, Adam?
Yep. Okay. I'm still here.
Okay. Can you scroll up?
Yep.
And keep going. I want to see, there's a picture there that I wanted you to see.
Which one was it?
It is. I guess I'm not seeing it now. Why am I not seeing it?
Oh.
I wanted you to see a picture of the profile of the plaza. Maybe click on the third picture on the top row under your cursor there. Yep. So the low point of the plaza is actually at the wall of the museum. The high point of the plaza is to our right in this photograph near your cursor. So what's interesting about it, and it has this one long continuous slope. Think of your bathtub, right, which has a high point at the opposite end of the drain. Right? You stand in it. Mm-hmm. You don't really sort of feel the slope. You get used to the slope, but you sort of see it here.
Yeah.
And that's kind of an interesting thing, so that when it rains in Paris, it all drains to that low point. And you know where that comes from, right? The original blues version of that song comes from Siena. Type in Il Campo, Siena, I-L, next word Campo, C-A-M-P-O, and then Siena, S-I-E-N-A. One of the greatest urban spaces of all time. One of my best and favorite lectures is there. Piazza del Campo. Yeah, that's it. Go to images. What an amazing space. Oh my goodness. And so the topography is evident in the very first picture on the top.
Yep.
And it actually all drains to that campanile in a drain at the bottom of the plaza, which is evident in the fourth picture on the second row, the far right picture on the second row. If you click on that, the sort of aerial from the tower, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So this was the very first blues song that the Stones ever stole, right? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, that gets back to that early lecture, right, of steal like an artist. So the drain is actually right where all of those pizza slices converge. I don't know if you know the story of this
Mhm.
space, but this space has in July a 2-week horse race where the various neighborhoods all elect some young stud like you, right, to ride a horse to represent that neighborhood. And those neighborhoods are called contradas, and the event is called the Palio, Palio, or Pallio. And if you ever look at like pictures of the Palio, so the horses run through the neighborhoods, and then they do laps around this thing in Ben-Hur fashion. And all of the citizens are in the courtyard, drinking and cheering and screaming and rooting, and everybody in the apartments on the El Campo are looking out the windows, right, to sort of enjoy the sort of spectacle. What if your Lansing property had this DNA, right? It had this kind of open-legged, like, configuration that related to the space, and maybe it actually kind of like looked at the museum, for example, or maybe it looked to the south to get the natural light. As I recall, the El Campo, this is actually facing west. The tower is to the east. I'd have to verify it again. That's just my recollection, having been there once or twice. But yeah, I think could be very interesting for you to model your work after that. Yeah,
that sounds
definitely run. Don't walk to Siena. It's probably the best city in Italy.
My wife and I were over in Italy just this past spring, but we didn't end up getting a chance to go to Siena.
Well, I'm sure you saw some wonderful things. Where did you travel?
We were in Rome,
sure.
Pompeii,
sure,
Assisi, and Orvieto.
So Assisi is very important as well. I have a lecture on Assisi. I've not been to Orvieto, and I've actually not been to Pompeii. But one of the very first missing middle typologies is the courthouse or the courtyard house, right? Pompeii and Herculaneum have the original sort of courtyard family houses, and the courtyard was where the fountain was, out in the open, and the water and the sound was a way to help cool the house by air movement, and brought sunlight into the perimeter rooms if you were up against other courtyard houses next to you, for example. So yeah, that's it all goes back to these old things, these classical antiques.
Okay.
So, did you write your summary, your project statement summary?
No, I can send that to you tonight, though.
Okay, that'd be good. Why don't you work on that and think a little bit more about trying to ground your work in at least the missing middle typologies. I also think, Adam, I think that the North Lot could take this proposal that you've illustrated in SketchUp tonight. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think you could deploy that there. I don't think it has to be this object sitting on the lawn south of the North Lot.
Yeah, just
I think you could explore that.
Okay. And it was still have some openness to it, so it wouldn't completely block off light and stuff from the houses that are already there.
That's right.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, it could just be an L-shaped configuration, or two separate bars that are parallel to one another. I mean, I think you could explore a couple of like site options just to sort of show how that might play out.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that any development on the South Lot that has residential in it is harder to like get traction and acceptability and absorption, just because it's like next to a parking lot, and it's not. It's
Right.
not.
Yep.
It's well, you heard my conversation earlier. I think it's just a lower grade property.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Do you have any other questions?
Nothing I can think of.
Okay. Well, like I said, I'm not here tomorrow and the next day, but if you have any questions, I'm around over the weekend. Just shoot them by.
Okay.
Alrighty. Sounds good. I'll talk to you soon.
Yep.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Have a good night.
Tim, I'll be back in about 2 minutes, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, you know they have a number for bereavement travel. Okay, so you should try to apply that. You're going to pay 400% the month. You're better off driving. What? Stranded in Washington, D.C. Okay, I'm back.
Okay. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Surviving.
Feeling better?
Yeah, I think the fever finally broke, so I think I'm hopefully on the way out. It's my two little germ carriers, I think, are constantly bringing it into the house.
Tell me about them.
7 and 4. So, but yeah, no, it's going good. I'm actually I almost want to say I'm a little overwhelmed with this site, but maybe I'm making it harder on myself than it really is.
Yeah. It's a big site.
It is, and I started running numbers and just looking at the math on it. It's about a 6-acre site, just shy of a 6-acre site.
Yeah.
The building itself is about 88,000 square feet.
Really?
Yeah, there's actually, so I had forgotten it's not just a Kmart. It's a Kmart adjacent to a Farmer Jack, all in one plaza. If you will.
Okay. Okay.
So the Kmart is about 54,000. The Farmer Jack's about 34,000.
Both are vacant?
Yes, both vacant, both abandoned.
And yeah, it would be overwhelming if you thought, oh, well, I'm going to do the whole thing in residential, right? And I'm going to have all these vets somehow be attracted to move back here and live there. So maybe, maybe that's too much water out of the fire hose. So maybe part of your plan is to say, okay, I'm going to snap off from the residential program, the Farmer Jack, and I'm going to program that to be a market, right? You don't have to, you could do a sketch of what that might look like in elevation or in a perspective, but that reduces like the amount of like property that you work with. And honestly, it makes a more vital and vibrant community or development because you've got other people coming to this thing, and maybe some of the vets can work in the grocery store. Maybe vets own it. Maybe they're like owners and stockholders, shareholders, and you know what I mean?
Yes. No, I'm very happy to hear you say that because that's what I was going to run by you as an option. Because so in my community, during the summer is the only time we have a farmer's market because there's no place for it. And so one of the options was a farmer's market I was looking at doing. The other was a community center, which has always been on everybody's list because we don't have anything like that. So I was hoping to try to incorporate that and program that. And my question to you was going to be, if I just program that and say, okay, this is kind of what I'm thinking in terms of an overall program.
Yep.
Then I'm going to focus on the micro and go, okay, perfect. Awesome.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of an urban plan. And maybe your you have so maybe we go back to the aerial just so I can see which part was the market and which one was it wasn't the Kmart to the
I'll share it with you right here.
The Kmart directly opposite.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
So the Kmart is here to the south.
Yeah.
And up here is the Farmer Jack.
And the Farmer Jack faced the parking lot.
They both faced the parking lot. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And I want to show you these too. So I went out this week and did a site walk.
Good for you. That's probably how you got sick.
It probably. So here is right to your right here is Saginaw.
Yeah.
And what you're looking at here is it'd be the east side of the Farmer Jack.
Yeah. And the loading dock area is behind. Yep, to the left. Yeah.
Correct, right there. So that's all the loading dock back behind there.
Yeah. So keep all of that.
Yep. And then let me go to the front real quick. Mm-hmm. So then looking at the front, right here, you're looking directly at the Farmer Jack.
Yeah.
And over to the right is the Kmart.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Can you go to Google Maps real quick?
Yes.
I want to take you to a thing I did.
Okay.
Not that what I did is good, although I definitely want to see your drawings. Go to West Bloomfield, Maple and Orchard Lake.
Yeah, you already showed me this one.
Oh, did I? So
yeah, that's a good one.
You saw the way we opened up the old Farmer Jack.
Was that the Plum Market one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and made it a plum market, and we made it smaller, and we added retail onto it. So okay, so you're totally down with that. Okay.
Yes. So just to get kind of my concept of operations, I guess. So I've been looking at the numbers, playing with unit sizes, just basically working in my sketchbook right now. The idea would be to program this in a way that part of it becomes for the community, part of it becomes the housing, and part of it becomes the program for the veterans. So I would end up doing something on the first floor of, probably part of the Kmart for the veteran services. And then I would probably, it's shorter than I thought it was too. It's only about 16 foot to the top of the roof deck. But they have some tall parapets and mansards that make it look taller.
Yeah, to hide the RTUs.
Yeah. So being only 16 foot tall, I thought I might be able to sneak units inside, but I don't think so. So
it'd be tough. You mean like a mezzanine or?
Yeah, right. So I think I'm gonna end up having to try to build on the roof a number of units. I'm probably looking in the neighborhood.
You could do that too.
Of 20 to 30 units is what I'm thinking.
Have you drawn that up? Have you laid that out?
Not in the computer, no.
Okay.
No. I'm playing with a number of different typologies in my sketchbook. So, and a couple of the other things I wanted to kind of show you too is I did a lot of digging over the last weekend here of typologies for big box reuse. It's actually quite a huge issue and is becoming a bigger issue is these vacant big boxes. And so what's happening across the country is the Walmarts, the Kmarts, all these places are abandoning their stores wherever they are and kind of leapfrogging over those to the next sprawling area.
Yep.
And rebuilding and abandoning the old one because it's
and
cheap.
There's another, just so you know, that's true, and that will continue to be the case, and that produces decentralization, and it creates density in the exurbs. For one thing, there is a movement afoot by the Whole Foods, by the Walmarts to do smart-sized stores.
Okay.
8,000 and 10,000 square foot stores.
Okay.
Walmart actually had a university store that was only like 3,000 square feet.
Huh. Okay.
That's 2 Starbuckses, Tim.
Right. Yes.
So obviously they weren't selling, they
they're
were
not the
selling
superstores.
lawnmowers, right, in the university store. Right. And it was more of a pop-up as a way of saying, yeah, we can do it.
Okay.
But the idea of doing micro stores is interesting. And maybe that could be, it doesn't have to be a full-blown Plum Market or A&P or Piggly Wiggly or an Aldi. It could be a micro store.
Right.
If you felt like you needed more room for residential or more room for vet services or other retail, right?
And I guess going back to my site plan here, on my initial concept in the assignment we did for the COAD, I was looking at doing, and this was just real rough, but the more I started looking at the typologies of repairing this urban sprawl damage that I've come across, is trying to take these parking lots and rehabilitate them to line in the street fronts, kind of like what you did on the Plum Market site where you had the buildings at the corner. Yeah. With the retail. So I was going to hope to try to program that in as part of the overall master plan for this, even though I may not develop.
So what is B? Is that a mixed-use building?
B, yes, it would. Mixed-use street retail, live, work possibly, or just
I see.
Something along
so
those
it could
lines.
have, like, in effect, 2 fronts, one on the diagonal street and one facing the Kmart.
Correct. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Nice. What's D?
D, I was looking at being part of more of a community city center.
Oh, could be like a jewel box. Yeah, clock tower. So you've got that as a highly visible, potentially iconographic thing.
Yeah. So what's kind of funny is if you look at, so I took some photos of downtown too, and this is kind of what our current downtown center is. Nothing crazy. I mean, this right here, that's our city center clock tower.
Yeah. I've never been there, but I've been there.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
So I would like to take this and move it essentially, to that corner and develop that corner better.
Well, now, you know, Ellen Dunham Jones talks about how some malls, some strip centers are becoming the new town squares.
Yeah, so I watched her TED Talk after you recommended it last time, and it really inspired me how she was talking about the one shopping mall that they turned into I think it was an artist's studio artist.
I remember that.
So, and then she talked about how, you know, some are being developed into this, some are being developed into that. So then that got me really searching and looking around, and I found a bunch of different a bunch of different case studies that were talking about, you know, turning it into a market. This was one of those.
So this is Enrique Morales.
Yes.
This is I don't think it's in Barcelona, but this is amazing.
Yes. I really thought this was cool. One of the other ones I thought was really, really neat. Where is it? That was the one you showed me.
Randy Brown.
Adaptive reuse. Oh, this one absolutely blew my mind. So looking at this, you're like, wow, this is a really cool library, right? Well, it started off as a Walmart.
Seriously.
It's in McAllen, Texas. It started off as a vacant Walmart.
Wow.
Matter of fact, that's what it looked like. Here's a construction photo.
Wow.
And here's that entrance after it was developed.
So let's go to Google Earth to McAllen, Texas.
Yes.
Right now. Let's do that. So that you can, and this is the way I like to work, right?
Yes.
Look at it, take a screenshot of it, bring it into AutoCAD at the scale of your site, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And test it. What did they do? Like, apply the damn case study.
I got you. That makes perfect sense. Okay.
You see what I mean?
I'm with you.
So there it is. I can still see the old parking lot. I can still see the loading dock.
Well, and so here, I just want to open this real quick. So that's the plan.
Yeah.
I mean, and they basically, their issue that they had when I was reading through the case study was, you know, they had these really, really tall ceilings that Walmart has, was how to program this into a library in a one-story space, which actually ends up being the largest one-story library in the U.S. And how to bring down the ceiling, how to bring down the spaces, how to make it look like a library and not a Walmart that's been converted.
That's easy, though, I think. I think that's a fun challenge.
It was, and it came out really, really, really cool.
So if you just look at the DNA of this site, it's got outlots.
Yes.
The PCS dealer, Cricket Wireless, and the burger joint.
Right.
It's got the parking lot, which has been reduced because the load is different, and
Correct.
it's privileged some of that reduction to community space.
Right.
It's tried to connect it with, you know, the neighborhood by walking paths. Yeah, it looks better in the pictures than it does in the aerial.
Right.
In the aerial, it still smells
Yes.
like a Walmart or
Right.
whatever it was. But yeah, this is what we're talking about.
So this was probably, once I really started digging through a lot of different examples and case studies, this is the one that really struck me as being like, oh man, this is mimicking almost exactly what I'm doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I
it
came
just
across,
gives credibility to what you're doing. That's all.
Yes, exactly.
Uh-huh.
There's a precedent for me doing this.
Yep.
And you know, I started finding other ones. So this is okay. So this was another one in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin,
Jesus.
that they transformed into this.
Uh-huh.
Another
Pleasant.
library.
Yeah, Pleasant.
This is funny. Is Austin, Minnesota. They transformed a former Walmart into the Hormel Spam Museum,
Uh-huh.
Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
There's another one that they transformed into an indoor go-kart arena.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Nothing special, but it's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. A family center.
Right. You know, and then so I started looking at a lot of this. So it's really given me a lot of hope. I started looking at
yeah. See, this is what we were talking about last time. You know, you had the big box on the left, And what I said when I showed you the Lake Flato stuff, right?
Yes, correct.
Was that maybe you cut things open, maybe you rip the roof off,
Yes.
maybe you peel back the skin and end up producing something that's actually the aggregate of lots of small things
Right.
that don't belie the genetics of, the heritage of the original big box.
Correct.
That's a perfect section drawing down below.
So, and that one really hit me too. It really started making me think when I did my site study. When I walked out there, there's a couple different points on the building that would allow you to maybe cut through the backside, like here.
Yeah.
This would allow you to cut a swath through the building.
Yep.
You know, to create sort of this community space walkway.
Mm-hmm.
And then it actually links up to the front in this area right here where the former garden department used to be.
Sure.
And so it makes a lot of sense. You know, you could do, something along the lines of stripping this canopy down to the bare steel and doing some.
Or rip it off.
Yeah, or rip it off.
Or do something completely different.
Right, right. You know, maybe you leave the steel and it becomes part of this.
I think what you have to feel comfortable with is using the steel and the footprint, but don't be limited by any of those.
Okay.
You don't even have to be limited by the roof.
Okay.
The roof can be cut and the steel can be extended up,
right?
To create higher volume spaces, like like where those skylights are. They just cut holes in the roof. But what if you extended walls up to make a much larger volume, bigger than the skylight itself? Like what if that courtyard roof that you see the trusses, you could leave the trusses there, but extend walls like clerestory walls up above that and have architecture and spaces there as well, looking into that courtyard. Sure. So yeah, it's really kind of, I don't want to say unlimited, but don't be limited by anything other than where the columns are, and you can still work with that. Okay.
Yep. I would agree. I appreciate it. So I started more and more.
Yeah, look at that's an interesting drawing.
So this girl, I don't know if you're familiar with her, Galina Takavia.
No.
She's got this idea of sprawl repair, she calls it.
Yeah, nice.
And so she's worked with a firm, and I can't remember where they're out of, DPZ Architects.
So that's Duany Plater Zyberg. So that's Andreas Duany's firm.
Okay. I wasn't familiar with them. I started looking at their work, and
he's the guy I told you guys to listen to his 10 lectures from the AIA conference down in San Antonio, and it gives you the entire history of urban form.
Okay. So
that's a great pair of drawings. So
he has a bunch of them. And it's funny, they classify it as many different things. They have, the shopping mall.
Yeah.
How do you transform the shopping mall? And it transforms into something along like that.
Yeah. I had a student from Columbus that took on one of these and tried that. Okay. So this is your condition.
Yes, exactly. So, and that's where I was getting at, is maybe I can program from a site master plan standpoint, something along the road to help reduce the parking and bring back the urbanism to this site. But then I can also start adapting the big box itself and then focus on the residential portion of the big box.
Right, right.
So that's kind of where I've been.
So let's go back to Galina's thing there for a second.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's look at this too.
So I downloaded her sprawl repair manual, she calls it. And she goes through the different case studies where you can repair sprawl on the regional, you can repair it on the neighborhood, big box, the building level. So this is just some of her typologies on suggestions for the big box repair.
Yeah, so you're kind of like, you're kind of a blend between outcome 1 and outcome 2.
Right, that's right, exactly.
Yep. But I think you need to have these drawings in your sort of presentation.
Okay.
You need to make them part of, like, what you need to teach us this. Even if it's her work, you need to teach us, about this stuff. Like, can you show me, do you have her strip center stuff?
Yeah, it's like for example here.
Yeah. So this typology is still widely pervasive and will continue to be pervasive. And here's what's interesting. they actually are providing less parking than what the ordinance requires and what the existing site actually has. So they're adding density, they're taking away parking, and they're transforming the old dumb box, which is really kind of interesting. Also notice how the dumb box has been perforated with new openings, especially where those cars are snugged up against it.
Yes.
And they're showing residential under the skylights.
Yep.
Who wants to live above the PCS store? Right?
Sure.
Maybe it's the people that work at the PCS store. Maybe that's the only place that they can afford to live because they don't need a car.
Right.
Because they can walk to get their groceries, they can walk to do their passport or get their mail. You know what I mean? There's benefits to blending these uses together. That's why I like the inclusion of an Aldi's or something like that into your program here.
Okay.
These are great drawings. Can you send me this link?
Yes, I can. I'll forward you her whole PDF. But I mean, she goes, typology by typology.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Through here.
Oh, there's a parking deck one. Let me see the parking deck one. Wow.
Which is funny because I actually worked on with a developer over in Fenton, downtown Fenton. We were working on a development similar to this because Fenton is lacking in parking.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually were proposing to do a wrap typology around a parking garage because the neighborhood, even though they were short on parking, they didn't want to see parking.
No one does, right?
Right. So.
Yeah, no one wants to look at an armpit ad, but we've got armpits, right? We've got two of them.
Right.
So just let me see the rest of these, please.
Yes. This was like a gas station outlet.
Oh God, yeah.
A drive-through.
Yeah, that's a McDonald's, right?
Right.
Or Burger King or Denny's or whatever.
Yep.
But here's the thing, right? The space between the new and the Denny's is really kind of cool.
Yes, it actually is. It's like a sub-street.
Yep. And it promotes walkability.
Right.
Pedestrianization. Yeah. It's all good stuff. This is the guy that started it all.
Okay. I now that you mentioned that, it's ringing a bell.
Andres Duany, Duany.
Yep, I have it right here that I wrote it down. And that's one of the guys I had not looked at yet.
And his wife is Liz Plater Zyberk.
Okay.
That's why it's DPZ, Plater Zyberk.
So
she's one of the staff planners or one of the staff architects then? Staff urbanists?
Galena worked with them for a number of years.
And
then she developed this sprawl repair manual with their assistants.
Yeah.
And put out the book called the Sprawl Repair Manual. Basically.
Nice. Is it a book I buy or is it a PDF? Or
you can. I downloaded a free copy of it through another university. So I could post the
PDF. Email me the link to download it and I'll take it from there.
Okay. But yeah, so I guess unconsciously I found them, or maybe it was consciously, maybe the name stuck in my head, and I've really delved in and I really like a lot of what they're developing.
It makes sense. This is the appeal of sort of new urbanist theories. The disdain, right, for new urbanist theory is that it all looks like this, and they don't really think of like how architecture can improve this stuff. Let me show you an example of what I mean. Just scroll through it. Yeah, it ends up looking kind of postmodern. That's a big PDF, isn't it?
Yes, it was. I was really surprised.
I wonder if this was like her thesis for school. Well, this one's spot on. God, I mean, even the diagonal road, that's just crazy.
Yep. But I like the way that she intersected it.
Yeah.
And kind of diverted.
Yeah. Well, that's what we talked about earlier. You know, the work goes beyond the footprint of the site boundary. Very cool. Okay, green light.
Okay.
Look at this, in 5 weeks, look how sort of far you've come, right, Tim? Just in your sort of sensibility about what can happen in your community, looking at something no one else wants to look at.
Right.
And you've learned some things along the way about how other people are doing it. And the wisdom that has been afforded them is something that you can withdraw from that bank, that wisdom bank, and apply it to your circumstance. And when you make that fund transfer, right, then that's where you as the creative comes in, and you'll end up making something that's special and unique to that site.
Hope so.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, good. What else do we want to go over? Don't forget to send me your write-up.
Oh, I did send it. Did you say I needed to trim it, or did you say you would trim it, or what?
Yeah, I'll trim it. If you could, like, maybe cut it by 25%,
Okay.
that would be helpful.
Okay. So that was my mistake, my communication.
Well, I
like that,
probably
I guess.
didn't communicate it effectively either.
So-
I said I was going to have to trim it, and I'm like you. I'm a man. Men are not creatures of subtlety.
Right.
Right. Your wife probably already has instructed you on that.
Yes.
So I was being subtle
Understood.
and maybe a little passive aggressive, like, I'll take care of it. Meaning I was suggesting that, if you wanted to own up to taking care of it, because I was being subtle.
I'll get it done. Not a problem.
You're obviously a married man.
Oh yes.
Do you have a son? Do you have 2 sons?
No, I have 2 daughters.
Oh, so you don't have
I
to teach the lessons of subtlety to them.
No, I have 3 women teaching me.
Well, you're blessed.
Yes, I am.
Excellent. I think we're all set then. Keep plugging away.
Okay, so I'll get that to you tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
We'll
Mark.
talk soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hi, Heather. Are you there? Hey, Heather.
Can you?
I can hear you.
Awesome.
How are you tonight?
I'm doing good.
Good. What do you want to talk about?
I'm trying to. Well, I was.
You know what? I've been to your city, actually.
Been to Pinckney?
I have. I didn't go recently. One of my favorite golf experiences. I drove. This was like, gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars ago. So that's like 15 to 18 years ago. I played golf at Timber Trace.
Oh wow! Yeah, we've got a couple more golf courses.
Yes, and Timber Trace was about another half mile west of downtown, maybe a mile west of downtown. And I drove right through your community, and I remember driving through hell.
Yeah.
Right, and I remember driving by what must have been like a motorcycle gang, like enclave or park or like meeting ground.
Yeah.
On the north side of 36, I think.
They do have a motorcycle gang for hell that does a lot of community service.
Yeah. And I guess I didn't so when like last weekend with some leisure time on Sunday after I sent the announcements, I said, gosh darn it, let me look at the map and figure out where the heck Heather is. And I kind of I wasn't sure where it was, and I kind of and I'm from here, right? So I kind of went, I said, okay, so here's Ann Arbor, here's Dexter. Oh, Pinckney's just sort of above Dexter, and then South Lyon is actually way over east of there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's not near South Lyon whatsoever. You're definitely in you're east of 23 as far as I'm concerned, or west of 23 as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. And everything I know is actually east of 23. So that's definitely a different part of the world. And then there's this enormous footprint of like parkland or forest or state park that's there.
Yeah.
So that takes up a huge swath of real estate.
Yeah.
Is that all state land?
I believe so.
Uh-huh.
Let me look.
Is it Pinckney State Park or something like that? Yeah, let me pull it up on my phone too. I was struck by that.
It's the Pinckney Recreation Area.
Yeah. It's enormous.
And part of it is owned by the University of Michigan as well.
I saw, excuse me, I saw that too.
It's huge, and it goes all the way down into the Waterloo State Recreation Area, and it keeps going all the way down to the Grass Lake area.
Yes.
So it's
I'm wondering if there's some sort of river network that links them all as well, which could be very interesting. You could take like a canoe or and see them all. Yeah, I think the golf course is closer to Putnam.
Yeah.
Oh, it's actually more than a mile. I remember it was 45 minutes door to door on a Sunday afternoon to get to Royal Oak from Timber Trace. So
I live right off of McGregor Road.
Which road?
McGregor. It's like by Portage Lake and Baseline Lake, the chain of lakes.
Wait a minute.
Strawberry Lake, Baseline Lake, Portage Lake. Part of the Huron River.
I'm seeing.
It's like East N36 in McGregor.
I'm not seeing McGregor. Is that in downtown?
It's not in downtown Pinckney. It's over a ways.
So are you closer to Whispering Pines?
Yep. Whispering Pines is just north of me, so.
I see McGregor now. Oh, I see the lakes. Baseline Lake, Portage Lake.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet that's pretty over there.
I live right in front of the other tiny little lake.
Uh-huh.
By Whispering Pines. So that's where I live, around that area. So.
Oh, you live on Tioga?
I live like west of Tioga.
Uh-huh. Moore Lake? Moon Lake? Or Lister or Universal?
West.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. So, yeah, so I guess I'd say you're in Pinckney, but really
I'm technically in Hamburg.
Yeah, you're in a township.
If I go like 100 feet north, or like it's like 500 feet west.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I've been invited to play at Lakelands Golf Club a couple of times, but I've had to postpone it, so I've never played there. So yeah, I know this area a little bit. I don't know anything about downtown Pinckney, but I know I flew through it, and hopefully I minded the speed limit.
Yeah, it's like one of those you blink and you miss it.
Yeah, I suspect it is. So yeah, I took a look at your site, and I took a little look at the sort of neighborhood, and it was all sort of coming back to me. I did a little building in downtown Brighton with a colleague of mine a long time ago, Grand River and Main Street. I think it's between Dutcher and North on East Grand River. It's an old restaurant, and now it's Prudential Heritage Real Estate. So it was a 2-story restaurant building, and we converted that when I was back at the other firm. That was a long time ago. That was BC, before CAD. So that would have been like 94, 95.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So what do you want to talk about tonight?
I guess the thing that I'm struggling the most with right now is just getting into case studies, because.
Sure. Well, we talked about one.
Yeah.
That was the Min-Day one.
Yeah, it's just a matter of figuring out how to find all this stuff.
Yeah, that's part of my job. And then have you looked at like Missing Middle as a
as a whole, yeah.
Yeah, like a required case study, and maybe learned a little bit. So maybe pull up on your browser for screen sharing the Missing Middle website. We can look at some of the types there.
Yeah, just one sec. Missingmiddlehousing.com. Is that?
Yeah, that'll work. I think someone pulled that up earlier tonight.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's just like, I know a lot of designers and a lot of architects, they design based off of case studies, but whenever I design, it's always something else.
Well, you know what I'm going to say to that, right? What am I going to say to that, Heather?
I don't know.
Oh, come on. I told you that case studies are central to our studio. I told you all about Austin Kleon's book, Stealing Like an Artist.
It just doesn't flow all too well, because I don't get ideas, but they're not any sort of.
You have strong ideas. I've seen your work, but I am saying to you that your ideas are based on case studies. You just weren't aware of them.
Probably.
Right? You just didn't know that they were based on things that have happened before.
Yeah, I look to see if it's possible, but I don't look like super in depth of like elevations and. But let me do the screen share.
Okay.
Screen share.
There it is. So at that top drawing, right, there's like half a dozen different house types or housing types. And there's the ones that we all know that maybe don't necessarily qualify within the missing middle housing based on a pure sort of definition of it. But I'm going to like amend that right now. But like duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, courtyard apartments, bungalow courts, townhouses, multiplex, those are like the parts in the kit that you can have and you can play with, that you can use. I'm encouraging you to at least to get going, to get off the dime, apply those. Apply one of those.
Okay.
Apply 2 or 3 of those, and run with it. Now, looking at the Min-Day piece, I would say that you're probably looking more at, courtyard apartments.
Yeah.
Right. You're looking at, maybe if we go back to the missing middle, maybe more of multiplex or
I was looking like,
or the quadplex, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just the density is smaller, and just given the sort of texture, right, the green and texture and scale of Pinckney and this particular block, which is sort of wide open, I think smaller, more and smaller things is better, right, than the larger things. What I liked about the Min-Day thing, and what I was hoping you were sort of gleaning from it, was the sort of wonky sort of scale juxtaposition that happened in that site as a way of maybe helping you see the potential for a similar scale wonkiness in your site, right? Given the large, big buildings on the site already, given the high traffic relationship that 36 has with your site, and given the need for density, that you could do like 1 or 2 of those tiny 4-story towers. And I thought that could be very interesting for you. And that would free up the land a little bit more for program spaces that the kids, and the families might enjoy more than just having lots and lots of housing. And that's why the roof and the outdoor space in the Min-Day piece over in Omaha was kind of an attractive thing for me. And then the whole idea of like a theater, wedding a theater component to your site, blending a lot of things together, sugar, flour, butter, right? Yeah. Chocolate chips, M&Ms, and oatmeal, making a really like robust, vibrant mixture of things. That's why the Min-Day piece was thrown in. But you say you don't know case studies?
Well, I It's not that I don't know case studies. It's like I'm not gonna know what case studies, like I struggle to design to a case study more as I design towards the programming elements and what needs to be in the building to, and then go for case studies. Like I guess I go backwards.
No, it's not that you're doing the right thing. Part of my studio's sort of motive is to help you refine your design process, not to subvert it or replace it, but to help you move more, expediently, to move more confidently. And so by, invoking case studies, it's my way of saying, you have a lovely idea here, Heather, but I'm here to tell you that was an idea that happened 45 years ago in the work of Alvar Aalto. Did you know that? No, but I've heard of Alvar Aalto. What should I know about Alvar Aalto? Well, let me tell you, and then I'm going to have you look at this piece, and you're going to see the relationship, and you're going to go, wow, that's actually really quite amazing that my work is like Aalto's work.
Yeah.
It should give you confidence because Aalto's really, really good, even though he's dead, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that kind of like,
that's helpful. Yes.
yeah, I'm trying to awaken you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that type of case study research help is more helpful to me
That's what I'm trying to get you to do.
Rather than being like, look at all these case studies now, design based off of those case studies. It's like,
well, it's my way of just shocking you, really. I mean, I'm not asking you to do it that way.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's nice to know that there's stuff that's out there that works, like the Min-Day.
Yes.
When you're just like, oh look, residential and theater and this, and it's like, cool.
Exactly.
So yeah.
It's a way of trying to say, hey, you're not alone.
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay. So are we okay?
Yeah.
Okay, scroll down on this Missing Middle blog. So let's click on these images right here, bungalow court. You're probably not going to look at bungalow court there, although you might. But like side by side or duplex, then there's the quad, which is like 2/2. And then there's the quadplex, which is like 4/4. Like these aren't necessarily
these are
buildings that were designed to be missing middle. These were buildings that we've seen in our cities for years. Missing middle is saying, look, we've been doing this for years. Let's rethink the traditional typology of the single family residence, which is probably not attainable for Heather right now in her life.
No.
But Heather, I don't, so how old are you?
I am 25.
So when people were 25 in 1945, in 1955, and in 1965, the year that all these single family houses were built, you were expected, it was a culturally resonant expectation that you were supposed to get married to a guy and start making babies, right? To fill up the schools and live in a house with a picket fence, right? It's a Wonderful Life, the movie. And that tsunami of expectation pervades still today when developers develop single family residential subdivisions. That typology is what's in your neighborhood, I'm sure, right?
Oh, yes.
You probably live in one.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm saying that because of all of the sort of unsettling things that have happened, I'm saying in terms of this class, that in terms of all of the unsettling economic things that have happened, and since men and women aren't the only people that get married anymore, and since no one can afford anything because we are saddled with student debt, And because it's just not tenable to build new subdivisions of single family homes, it's not even a sustainable proposition, right? We need to like go back to our roots as architects and look at what we've been doing that is truly sustainable, that accepts density in smaller and medium and larger size doses, and say, what did those guys 100 years ago do that we kind of like left behind? Let's look back at those case studies and see what we can do to derive a better product that's right for today, and then make it current for today. Make it something that people can afford to live in, that can be built efficiently and can be well designed. That's the subtext of my seminar, my studio. Capiche?
Yeah.
So now what do you want to talk about tonight?
Well, I can show you what I.
That's what I meant.
So I've been working on the project description, like you had said, for the past couple days. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to describe what I want to do.
Oh, I think this is your project statement for me for the
Yeah,
grade sheet.
yeah.
Good.
I just have it on PowerPoint right now.
Yep. So just copy it and email it to me.
Okay. I'm trying to like condense it down into.
It's the perfect size.
Okay. And then I did. I
Nice.
looked further into the boxcar.
So you modified these images a little bit, didn't you?
Slightly.
Yeah, I like what you did. Oh, nice.
And then I tried to find information and find sections and find elevations, but it's very hard to find this stuff.
Did you call them?
I did not call them, no.
Okay. I wouldn't dissuade you from doing that.
Okay.
I keep complimenting you on this, but I am really impressed with how you organize and portray information.
Yeah, because I was sick over the weekend, so I didn't have a whole lot. I don't have a ton done.
Uh-huh.
It's like all in my head right now. I just have to put it down.
Uh-huh.
And what I found, interesting was their rebar.
Yes.
How they had to weld it individually by hand
Mm-hmm.
because of power lines and site conditions that are everyday situations and problems
Right.
that you don't realize until you actually go out and build it.
Right. Or deal with it as an architect and a contractor, and the dance that you have to do, to make the idea happen. That's very good.
And the design was also commissioned by 4 artists. Like
Wow.
there were 4 different people that worked on the facades of these buildings that were owned by multiple owners.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that's a mixed use with mixed owners with.
Yeah. Gets complicated, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a complex building.
Uh-huh. Can you show me this building on Google Earth?
Google Earth. Well, I can do Google.
Go to Blue Barn Theater, Omaha, Nebraska, right?
Map.
And then get to the satellite view. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And zoom in, please.
Something's under construction.
So it's under construction here, but you can see where the tower is, right? You can see where the theater is going.
Yeah, Nice.
Yeah, and you got cars on it, so you know how big things are. So
Mhm.
here's what I would do to complete this really, really lovely case study discussion that you're leading. Is I would copy that image and drop it into CAD, right, or onto your site, and scale it up or down, like dial it into the scale of your site, and show us what this piece looks like on your site,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
Just as a compare and contrast. Always bring it back to your work.
Okay.
Just so that you understand the strategy, and you're going to find that this is much smaller than your site,
Yeah. It looks.
right?
It looks like. It looks like, you know, that tiny little strip that I showed you in the
Yes, ma'am.
beginning. It looks like two of those.
Yeah, I agree with you. And when I was saying last time that maybe you ought to try to consolidate all of the program that's built to the hard corner at the southeast corner,
Mhm.
you know, I think this probably fits in that corner,
Yeah.
for example. So that's what we're thinking about. What other plates? It didn't look like you had any other plates.
No.
Okay, so I would do that. Do you have it? Can you go to Street Views? Does the Street View? Sometimes Street Views are more current than the aerials because their aerials are satellites. You might be able to see it.
Where are you?
It's right there.
All right.
See what I mean?
Mhm.
Sometimes the Street Views are a lot more contemporary, and you can do things like count parking spaces, you know that they're 9 feet wide, for example, and measure things. You can measure things in Google Earth, right? You can snap measurements to them and understand the sort of scale of things. But like imagine that that's your hard corner, right?
Yeah.
And the spaces to the right are near the paint, or not the Paint Creek Trail, but the trail, the rail trail, right? That sort of grassy, lawny thing, right? That I think could be very sort of comparable in ways to yours.
Yeah. Yeah. I see how it's, you know, something like, you know, having it in that hard corner would be beneficial.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Have you? Let's see. Have you looked at the work of Opticos, who are the people that really are behind the missing middle?
No.
Did you look any more at David Ajay, who I think I told you about?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Because I was working on the case study thing, but
Uh-huh.
I looked at some of his like houses.
Sure. Yeah, I think those have the same scale.
Yeah.
His stuff's really quite beautiful. So the one I want you to maybe think about looking at is David Baker Architects. I don't know if you're aware of their work. Are you feeling better? You still sound sniffly.
Yeah.
You've been sniffly the whole month, though, quite honestly.
Yeah. This weekend was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Bronchitis?
I think it's just the weather.
Mm-hmm.
And
There
then,
he is.
because I'm allergic to mold,
Lovely.
and it's been really rainy.
Yep. So now type in Tassafaronga, TASS. It'll pop up.
Oop.
AFARONGA, I think. Okay, so this is a small community. So see the third row, the drawing, the aerial.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then see the one that's 3 right of it, just so the site plan, or 4 right of it. So let's click on that one first. The site. Oh, that's the small one. Let's go back to the aerial. It looked bigger, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the scale of your thing, and if you look at the entire development, it's actually much bigger than this. And it's also pretty varied. Like, do you see? Yeah, go there. And okay, click the map that you've got your cursor on. You see how in that map, right, there's really dense things where your cursor is, then it starts to break down a little bit, and then it gets to be like townhouses on that street, and then it gets to be sort of individual things at the top.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a variety of sort of housing types that that he deploys there. There's like 3 or 4 or 5 different sort of missing middle opportunities that he deploys here. There's always a sort of a commitment to high quality design and placemaking. So let's get out of that image and just look at some of the architecture.
Mm-hmm.
And start with the second image. Start with that second image on the top. Courtyard.
Yeah, it's the courtyard apartment.
Yep. And the courtyards are actually more important than the buildings.
Yeah.
That's something to always think about. What is the order? What's the organization? What's the message that I'm trying to make with the spaces between the buildings? Then look at the second to last image and the one before that. Yep. So this is what the street has on it. Notice how it's 2- and 3-story things. They're not repeating. They're not the same material. They're not the same color, right? They have, you know, Romeo Juliet balconies. They have downspouts. They have solar voltaics on the roof. You know, they have all these things that just make them kind of like unique and make living there or being there not a stigma, but actually kind of an attraction. Look at the one picture left of it where your cursor is.
This is neat.
Yeah, this is a really strong project. I'd live there in a heartbeat. Look at how the scale drops way down in front of those units, and at the same time, there's like this little pad of green out in front of each house.
Yeah.
There's like, I can see your whole development, Heather, having kind of this DNA, having this kind of ambiance and character.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a good one.
Yeah. I like this one. This one's helpful for me.
Good.
Because you know, Pickney, we're mostly single.
Small.
Yeah, we're small. We're not like 3-4 stories. It's 2 stories max.
Yep.
So finding things that have, you know, 2 stories, maybe 3. I don't know the maximum height in the village of Pickney.
Well, you would do, just so you know, you would do this as a planned unit development or a planned development.
Mm-hmm.
And you would probably, so in other words, a developer with an architect like you would come in and design it 2 and 3 and 4 stories because you knew it was the right thing for your pro forma, that it's the right thing for your market, it's the right thing for this site based on your experience, Heather. And then you would enter into an agreement with the city, right, based on the layout, based on the design, based on the unit count, based on the parking spaces, right? A planned development is kind of spot zoning at its best.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Because my brain's like, well, I don't know the max height. Because there's some spaces that are, there's some villages or cities that are like,
Yep.
a max height of 30 feet. And you're just
Right.
like,
Right. So let's scroll down. I think that's a really good image. And let's just look at some of the other images. So the image on the top right,
Which one?
with the vertical and gray and white. Yeah. So this is not for your site,
Mm-hmm.
but this is part of the same development.
Ah.
So when he does a corner thing on a hard corner, right? He treats it as a really special opportunity. He celebrates the corner. He celebrates the silhouette. He celebrates depth and texture,
Mm-hmm.
right? He celebrates variety and sort of playfulness, right? And he does like sensible things, like puts retail on the ground floor,
Yeah.
right? Puts balconies at nice units. Does small windows because that's like the right thing to do for the budget. But he makes the windows look larger, right? Because they have like a panel below the windows. He makes the windows operable because everyone likes fresh air. You see what I mean? So like this is a really good building at a number of different levels, or a good development at a number of different levels. Maybe if you scroll down further. Oh yeah, where your cursor is, there's a nice courtyard space there. So sometimes the buildings can connect.
Which one?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, yeah, the yellow. So where's your cursor, right? Yeah, that one. How did you know I was going to say that? So like that kind of thing,
Ah, yeah.
right? The unit maybe isn't sitting there in that brown box, but that's clearly like a corridor.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's not just a corridor. Maybe that's like a social room,
Yeah.
right? Or a study area. And it's really low, right? It maintains the scale. Actually, you see those lights that are sort of strung above. There's a couple of other images that you'll see if you click on the related images in the thumbnails. Keep going. You might see them again. Yep, that's that bridge. Keep going. That's the same image if you go back. That's the same. So we saw that little house with the canopy.
Yeah.
That one from the other view, right?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that one's kind of like at the other end of that bridge, or maybe it's a different bridge. But he's created kind of a neighborhood of these highly varied house types and form types in terms of height, scale, window, material, right? But the common thread is a commitment to variety and organizing them all to the other common thread, which was the ground plane, and making that space between the buildings really, really special.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want you to know where this came from. Type in, save this and type in Kresge College. And in 1965 to 1970, this was done. And go to images.
There's yellow.
Yeah. So click on any of these images on the top row. So the ground plane is very important. These are dormitories. This is a residential college, the University of California at Santa Cruz. Let's just scroll through them. And the color plays a very important role. Obviously, this is a very hilly landscape and a very, very, white sort of strategy for architecture.
Mm-hmm.
But look at the variety of windows and forms, how the architecture is kind of just understated. The same themes that David Baker deploys.
Ah.
This is by Charles Moore, who actually went to the University of Michigan. He's passed on now. But the colors actually relate to program, for example. Oh, and it has like a little river running through the campus too, which is quite pleasant. That thing at the end of the street there, that's the laundromat, for example.
And it's chlorinated yellow.
Yeah. And then there's the post office, and so these things all kind of like Oh, that's kind of a cool image. But these things all related to sort of their program. That's a much later picture that shows how it's been kind of modified or bastardized. Yeah. But in any event, this came before David Baker. Outdoor stairways, single loaded corridors with balconies. And by the way, go back, please. Look how the windows in the building on the balcony wall are 2-story. See that?
This one?
Yep. And how they're kind of regular.
Yeah.
And if you think about that elevation, right, without that screen in front of it, that elevation is probably kind of like a dumb box, probably like the picture next to it in brick up above.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably just a dumb box. But what he's done, 6 feet out from that dumb wall, is created a baluster wall, right, that has supersized windows in it of varying proportions that are 2 stories in height that give the building a different kind of scalar reading, right?
Yeah.
So he's made a 3-story building kind of a 2-story building, and that's the other shot of it. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So he's been very clever about that. So where did this come from? type in San Gimignano, S-A-N, next word G, S-A-N, yeah, G-M, there, G-M, I, there it is, San Gimignano, second, there you go. Now type in images. And we just went here because it's so beautiful. But go to the 1, 2, 3, 4th row, 3rd picture, the aerial.
This one?
Yeah, 3rd one. That's fine too. Yeah, that's it.
This one's better.
Yeah, that's it.
Huh.
So the Italian hilt, and it could have been Orvieto, it could have been Assisi, right? It could have been Volterra, another great city. But the Italian hill town was his case study. You seeing the connections?
Yeah, like this.
Exactly. The way it was laid out, the ability to deal with the grade in the hill, the way to deal with like a unifying expression of architecture in terms of like the color and the material, and then letting the facades be the variables, and but privileging and making most important out of everything you do, the ground plane. Voila. Right? Have you been to Italy yet?
No, I haven't.
Are we going to Italy? Is that on your agenda of things to do?
It's on my bucket list.
Good for you. Okay, that's all I need to hear.
Someday.
Yep. Make a commitment to do that.
I have to get a passport first.
That's a detail. That's a $100 detail.
Yeah.
And the courage to sit in front of a camera, which is not easy for a lot of people. There it is. That's kind of the shot right there, right? That's Kresge College. Do you see what I mean? Do you see it now?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got to squint your eye. Obviously you got to think away like obvious things that are different. Oh, well, the trees in the background aren't there, and it's white and not ochre. Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I think the DNA, right, the essence of Kresge College is found in San Gimignano. It's found in Volterra. It's found in Assisi. It's found in Siena, right? So, which means then by association that David Baker is taking his cues from these precedents as well. Not as sort of consciously, but as an extension of the original type.
Yeah.
You're doing the same thing. You're inevitably, as you work, going to be building on something that other people have done before you. I'm just trying to get you all to be more comfortable with that.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Uh-huh.
So start taking the blocks like David Baker did here at Tassafaronga Village and arranging them on the site to see what they look like. Oh, by the way, go to Google Earth. Let's go to Tassafaronga. Right? You got to do that. Copy paste that, go to Google Earth, right, and go to Maps.
Want to open up another so I don't lose it.
Yep, brilliant. It's in California somewhere.
Oh, there it is.
There it is. Right? So then you copy that and drop it into your AutoCAD file for your site and just show what all of that or some of that looks like as a tool for starting.
Yeah.
Right? And then you can start like sensing how close buildings can be, how big buildings are, and just use them as a kit of parts.
Okay.
Right?
Mhm.
That's how we design.
Okay.
And blend that with the way that you design, and you'll get stronger. All right?
Mhm. Yeah. And I did find a neat little one. For anyone else looking to try to grab CAD files from anywhere in the world, cadmapper.com.
So share that in an email with everyone, will you please, including me? So how does this work?
You can grab free areas up to 1 kilometer squared, and it costs money additionally, but if you do 1 kilometer and 1 kilometer and like mesh them together, it's free. But you can start creating a file, and you can essentially grab, let me try to get,
Which is your site.
in this area is my site, yeah. And then you press you can do AutoCAD or Rhino or SketchUp. There's no 3D buildings where I'm at, but you can do topography as well. Get topo. I'm flat. So what it'll do is it'll create a DXF of your area, and it has all of the roads to help you create that 3D element when you go ahead and do a 3D model.
Brilliant. Cadmapper. It's a Google sort of snap-on. Is that what this is?
It's a cadmapper.com. It seems like a Google snap-on.
It does. Very cool.
Yeah, that's what I spent some time over the weekend doing.
I'm glad.
Because I got myself. Nope. Hold on. I know it's somewhere. Yeah, it's over here. I put things together to make an 11 kilometer flat one.
I see.
I don't have CAD loaded at the moment, but.
That's all right. Okay, I got the point. Send me that link and send it to the others.
Okay.
Cool. I'll use that at work.
Yeah. So like you can also like with like the Google Earth, like the Google 3D type thing, it also snapshots like cities.
Sure, that's how I see it.
There's already like it shows you how it works to where you can load up buildings into the city.
I'm totally excited by this because so many people come to us with this harebrained idea that they want to go do this here on this corner, and they don't have a survey.
They have them already. Like this.
Wow.
There's the
Wow.
That's
wow.
free. So.
Brilliant. Someone's making a lot of money off of this.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Heather.
So I'll send that.
Thank you. I'm not around the next couple of days, so for the first thing I'd say is send me your project statement, please.
Yeah, I can.
And then if you need me over the weekend, just contact me. And then the third thing is get well soon. Drink lots of orange juice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Have a good night.
Yep. Oh,
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
for Monday,
Yes, ma'am.
do you want to see things such as the site research?
Yeah.
The Monday-
You've got a sort of, you have two jurors. Potentially we have two jurors. One's a landscape architect who thinks and operates like an architect.
Mhm.
And the other is an architect in our office who is familiar with missing middle housing because he's been in our reviews before.
Mhm.
And both of them, I assure you, know nothing about Pinckney. So you need to like give everybody the full Monty in terms of the data, the information, the research that you've got, and get them. You got to cover a lot of things in 9 minutes. So break it like maybe into three nuggets of content,
Mhm.
to 3 minutes. You'll be fine with this because of the way that you document your research, document your content. You're so explicit in the way you sort of share information through graphics. So yeah, you have to show them everything, and that it's going to get harder, Heather, because in 10 weeks you're going to have to do it all again. But then you're going to have a building to talk about,
Mhm.
right? Because I'm going to have other people in that final review that I may or may not know at all. Sometimes they give me people in these final reviews now that are assigned to my class. So it's it gets harder.
Okay. And then just some of the case studies, like the important ones.
I think Tessa Paranga could be a good case study, and then Min-Day at least to start with that.
Yeah.
But I think Kresge College and I
Yeah.
think that could be a good one too.
Those three I'll kind of mush together.
You know, I've never looked at. Let's do it. I've never looked at Santa Cruz, the Kresge College on Google Earth. I have no idea how big that is.
Okay.
I have a feeling it's only like 12 buildings.
I can look that up.
Please. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's that J-shaped or that like foot and shin thing where it says food co-op. I assure you. Yeah, it's totally in the woods.
Oh wow.
Look at
Yeah,
that.
it is.
There it is. Any street views in there?
No, it's not popping up. Hold on. Maybe it'll pop up. No, wait. There it is.
Wow.
There.
I've never done this. Yeah, that's kind of like the outside. That's like the entrance.
You can see.
Uh-huh. So this is on my bucket list to go see. I've always liked Charles Moore's work. And see, so you park outside and then must walk through.
Ah.
Right? So that's kind of like, it's a walled city, right?
It is.
It's like Siena. It's a walled city. It's a medieval city. Very interesting. Can you go back out?
Yeah.
Just sort of pan around a little bit, maybe go up a little bit.
It goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all still it up there. Yeah, all the way up. Very interesting.
It's like a little. Oh.
It's a residential college is what it is. You know, it's not where classes are. It's where it's like it's dormitories. It's all dormitories.
Yeah.
Right? It's like all grad students or all families or whatever, right? I don't even know where Santa Cruz is. Where is Santa Cruz? Is it near San Francisco? Oh, gosh, no. That's near like Santa Barbara, probably. Where is that?
It's
Go back in closer so we can see. Now maybe go to maps and get rid of that. Yeah, it's south of San Francisco.
it's
Yes, but it's near Monterey. Wow.
the closest big city is San Jose.
Yeah.
That's where my best friend was born.
San Jose?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the tech belt, right? That's where all of the
Yeah, she moved to Michigan when she was young.
very interesting. Okay, well someday
Yeah.
Someday indeed. Okay, good. Well, good luck this weekend and keep chugging along.
All right.
Thank you, Heather.